Alrighty, welcome to the show. May King Tsang, you are the queen of FOMO marketing, and I want to dig into what that actually means and how people can use FOMO marketing and employ it to build their personal brand. But before we get into that, I want to know what you were doing 10 years ago.
Wowzers, 10 years ago. Golly, so that's, I've got to get my maths right now, haven't I? So 2011. So I just started my business. I'd been made redundant, started my business, going from corporate world into making tea. So that was the name of my business. And then an opportunity presented itself for me to move to Australia. So I actually was making tea in Australia in 2011, creating a Facebook group before it was a thing, building relationships, help sharing, collaborating, and having some incredible opportunities to collaborate with chefs, New York artists, selling my tea, speaking about tea. Yeah, that was what I was doing, because I'm officially one of the top 50 recommended speakers of tea in the world, and so I was making my mark in Brisbane, Australia.
And you do call yourself a keynote speaker. I love that. So you've gone from the UK to sunny Brisbane, and you've started a whole new gig around social media and tea. Did I get that right? Like all of that
exactly
sort of stuff.
Right, yeah.
Fantastic. Alrighty, so we're going to talk FOMO marketing, but you're more than FOMO marketing. I mean, you are a social media correspondent or a reporter. You're also, and we'll get into how fast you are on Twitter, but you're also a professional live tweeter as well. So all of these things are combining, but I'm tipping they've all got something to do with FOMO marketing. So why don't you run us by FOMO marketing and give us a bit of an explanation of what you see that is and what your role is and what you do on a day-to-day basis, because that will form the context for the discussion.
Yeah, so with my years of experience in building my own FOMO, means the fear of missing out, I created the buzz and excitement of getting people to work with me in the space of tea initially. So I live tweeted, I did interviews with people, I went to festivals and created that live content on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. And then I pitched for the first time to my clients in 2019. So when I came back to the United Kingdom and went back in Sheffield in 2016, so after being away from being in Australia for 6 years, I came back and I pitched to my clients and I said, would you like a professional live tweeter? And they said, well, no, but can you do Facebook and Instagram at the same time? And I said, yeah, sure. You know what it's like, Trevor, being an entrepreneur, you say yes and worry about the details later. So that's exactly what
Indeed.
I did. So I live tweeted, I was a correspondent, so I went on Andrew and Pete's Facebook Live, I went on their Instagram stories and created content for them. Basically broke the internet, and by creating live content, real raw right now, on all the platforms, I was creating content for the lurkers and those people who were sitting on the fence. And so when they saw the excitement, they saw that the people who were attending the conference were so happy, they'd learned so much from the expert speakers. Within a week, I managed to help them to sell 425 tickets for their next conference. And that,
for the next one.
And that, my friends, is FOMO. So if you've got a community already and they're lurking and they're not quite sure whether to buy from you or, they're not ready to buy yet, you're creating that buzz and excitement. You're letting them know about what other people what impact you have made on your existing clients and so on. And so if they don't buy, then they're missing out. And that's what FOMO is all about. So I create that buzz and excitement on behalf of my clients.
Rightio. Let's just back it up a little bit there. Andrew and Pete, they run it's probably more of a provincial or a regional conference. It's an entrepreneurship conference. I've seen their website before, but I couldn't tell you 100%. Some of the guests look terrific. They're in the UK. What city are they in?
Yeah, so they are content marketers, and they're they were hired to speak around the world. They spoke at Social Media Marketing World, and yes, and then as part of their Atomic membership, so their business, Atomic, that's right. Their business is slightly different to other people, where the conference is actually built into their membership. So if you join their membership, then you get the conference for free. And so, as I said, there's probably a lot of people who are thinking, oh, do I want to join the membership? How much of an impact is it going to make on my business? How am I going to scale? So by creating that buzz and excitement on all the platforms, because they themselves haven't got time to create live social media content, so they hired the number one FOMO creator to do that for them on their platform, and then, as I say, it managed to help them to increase their membership and sell those tickets. So that's what I did.
So you now do that for, obviously last year was a bit more difficult doing it live, live, not physically live, but you're actually, there's a lot of online virtual events where I take it you were probably doing a similar sort of thing.
Yeah, so going back to Andrew and Pete, they were my second virtual conference actually. So I went in every morning on Facebook Live on their in their community and talked about, I was kind of like the MC and sharing content with people, talking about what was going to happen that day, who were the speakers, and then when the comments were coming up, people may have had questions about what they were going to hear, who they were going to learn from. And because I had an insight into who the speakers were, then we were able to have a dialogue. And because it happened just shortly after, there was still an erring and ahhing about the lockdown. It was one of the first virtual conferences to have been held in the UK. So we were, I think people were, tuning in just to make them, just to sort of get used to the new normal, as it were. And so, I've been creating FOMO for conferences, but also what's happened since the lockdown is that people have been pivoting, and so they've been running digital challenges. And so I've actually been creating FOMO for digital challenges as well. So getting people buzzed and excited about a free online challenge to help them with their business, either to pivot or to learn more, go deep on our platform. So one of my clients, I helped them to create FOMO to get people to go onto the LinkedIn challenge, and from I think it was 1,200 people who attended the free digital challenge, we managed a 5% conversion as a result of the FOMO that I created on Facebook, on LinkedIn, doing interviews. So you mentioned I'm a social media correspondent as well, so interviewing people as well, and again getting that buzz and excitement onto social media to help people understand the impact that Shelley Hutchinson was making on people who bought her program, and what you're going to miss out on if you don't buy the program. So digital challenges is also a huge thing for a FOMO creator. That's what I did last year and this year.
And so, I guess you work on behalf of the conference organisers, clearly, but do you work for sort of like anyone else within the event space, like the speakers or that side of things? Because I guess if you're there live tweeting or live Instagramming or live Facebooking or whatever, you could do it for the whole conference, or you could do it for particular people. I'm just thinking from a personal branding perspective.
Definitely. And so I was actually hired by a company who decided not to sponsor an event, but they were going to the event, but they haven't got time to create content, and build relationships with people online, because they were actually meeting people face to face. And so I was hired by Content Cal, who are a scheduling tool, and in San Diego, whilst Andy was meeting, greeting and building relationships and partnerships online, with real with people, I was hired to live tweet, and I managed to get them on the leadership board. I think they were position 3, so I was number 1. Of course, I was. And I was Content Cow was number 3, and gave them exposure which they wouldn't have had if they didn't hire a FOMO creator. And virtual conferences again, speakers and sponsors. I actually delivered a training program for sponsors for the Vet Rehab Summit. So there was a virtual conference, a lot of sponsors, and so I was teaching them. It was a training program that I wrote specifically for them, but it's applicable to any sponsor. So if you're prepared to sponsor an event, make your money, make your presence known a little bit more, not just by waiting and hoping that people will come to your virtual stand, but engage with people on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. And again, you're creating content for the lurkers. If you engage with people, you know, and I know, Trevor, when you're replying to someone on Instagram, on Facebook, you might be tagging someone and talking to that person, but you're actually talking to the people who are lurking. It's like being in that party, right? Trevor, you've been to a party, right? Haven't you?
Once or twice, a long time ago.
And you remember when you were talking to somebody and there was a circle around you and they were all listening, waiting for their opportunity to interject with their words of wisdom. And that effectively is creating content for the lurkers. When you're responding to somebody on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, you're effectively creating content for the lurkers. So if you as a sponsor or a speaker are engaging with people, as well as speaking or as well as sponsoring, then, or hiring someone to do that on your behalf, of course, because you're actually speaking and sponsoring, then you're actually maximizing your time at that conference. And at a virtual event, a book launch or a digital challenge or a conference, you're maximizing that time because you've already got an audience that's really engaged. And so if you get, if you take part in the hashtag and the conversations, you're basically giving yourself free publicity. That's what you're doing. So yes, I can create FOMO for speakers, and I've done that in the past for sponsors, for attendees even, as well as the conference organizer as well.
So how does that work then if you're doing it on behalf of a company or a person? Say it's a speaker and they've landed a really good slot on a prestigious conference and they want to leverage that across a number of channels. How does that then work in terms of, you take over their channels, or do you introduce yourself, or how does it work?
I do exactly that. So I actually take over their accounts, so whether it's Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook or all of the above, I can do absolutely all of that. And I might put the first post and say, as you can see here, I'm not Aunt McGinley from Pods Up North, I'm making tea, but I'm doing an Instagram takeover today. And so then I would then create that live content on their behalf. And it's always on their account. And sometimes I may do a retweet or I may do a share onto my own account, because I think collectively across all the socials I've got 17,000 followers and rising. And so I can then use my account Making Tea to share a bit of their content in order to stretch that publicity a little bit further. So I always do the content from my client's account.
So you must be quite speedy on the old. I'm tipping you do it. I'm tipping you've insured your thumbs. Do you do it? Is it just on phones or iPad, or you cheat and use a computer?
That's a great question. I love that question. So at in-person conferences, it's always on my phone. So I can tweet on average 1,200 tweets a day. At virtual conferences.
How many? 1,200 tweets. Yeah, some people don't do that in 10 years.
My personal best is 1,376. And then at virtual conferences, I do have to use my computer simply because taking a screenshot is it's not going to be as effective. So I use the a print screen or something like that on the computer. So as a result of that, I tweet on average about 548 tweets at a conference, and I've also done webinars as well. So one of my clients, the British Association for Sustainability in Sport, they have a monthly webinar, and so I tweet on their behalf, and then I fashion a LinkedIn post which I will then share with my clients, and then they will use that as a LinkedIn post, and also it will double up as a newsletter as well, just to highlight that if people have missed the webinar, they can always tune in. It's available on YouTube, that kind of thing. So I think I did an average of 6 webinars, and it's about 50 tweets an hour.
Yeah. And so do you swap channels midway? Like if you're doing whichever event it is, do you then swap onto Facebook, and how do you do the live then? And then I'm just trying to, I know what it's like switching from even one Instagram account to another, and I'd be gone if I had to move all of these channels. So what's the most you can do in one hit? You can do Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and Facebook? I
can do all 4. Yeah, I can absolutely do all 4. And
from a phone?
From a phone, yeah, absolutely. And of course...
That's insane.
And, I think because I'm an ambivert, which means I'm, part introvert, part extrovert, when I'm at a conference, I'm just at a virtual conference as well as an in-person one, I'm just really excited, buzzed and excited, and that adrenaline really keeps me going. So, I was tweeting and creating LinkedIn posts on behalf of a client that was based in the States, and I think I was, working until 2 in the morning, and and after 2 in the morning, I was still hyper. It was just amazing, so I had to have a glass of wine to calm me down and get me ready for bed for the next day. But yeah, I can actually switch very quickly across all the channels. It's really funny actually. I was asked one day by a guy, said, "How do you do that? How do you listen and tweet constantly and go onto Instagram? How do you do that?" And in my head I was thinking, well, you're a male, you can only do one thing at once. But when he asked that question, I thought surely anybody can do it. And then when I looked at the content across the hashtag, I realized, that is my special skill. I am somehow able to split my brain into 3. So I can listen for the content by the speaker or the sponsor. I can then tweet that, repurpose that onto Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook whilst listening to the next piece of content, and just do that constantly, for 8 hours if I wanted to, So it's my superpower, creating FOMO.
Just took you a little while to find your superpower, and then
that's right. And now I'm soaring. Yes, I'm
flying. And so let's look at others taking that lead, and maybe not to the velocity that you do it, but if you do go to a conference and live tweeting from conferences was a thing. Maybe it's not as big now, but I think it's, if you're on Twitter and you've got influence, or you're going to be a speaker, or the fact that you're turning up to an industry conference and you're sharing that content, whether it's on LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever your audience is, that really does show that you're out there doing things. You're taking it in, you're listening, you're watching, you're sharing content. I think it speaks volumes, and I think it's a great thing for people to do for their personal brand. And if you're using a hashtag, then you meet other people a lot easier, and people share your content as well, because some people at conferences are a bit lazy and they just retweet everyone else's.
That's exactly right. And when you do the retweet, your retweet is lost amongst all the other retweets that potential tweet has had. But if you engage with the speaker or engage with the sponsor or the conference organizer, you're going to stand out. And also, you're creating FOMO for the lurkers, because, like you say, it is a no-brainer, really, because what you're telling to the world when you are at a conference or a digital challenge and you're sharing that content, you're telling the world that you're growing your business, you're scaling your business, you're taking time out to invest in yourself, personal development, and you're not keeping it to yourself, you're actually sharing it to the world. And of course, at the moment, there's a lot of digital challenges and a lot of digital conferences at the moment, and there are replays available. So why don't you share that content and then watch a replay to really absorb? Because I know that a lot of people say, well, I'm at a conference to learn, that's why I paid my pounds and pence and dollars. Yes, you are. But if you share content, then you're maximizing your time, and people get buzzed and excited as part of, a conference or a digital challenge. So when you search on that hashtag, and if you share that great content, rather than retweet, rather than like, rather than sharing other people's, make sure you add your comments on top of it, okay, or create original content, and you will help to, first of all, create FOMO amongst your community, but also help you to stand out. And I've won clients just by live tweeting or Instagramming on that day. Sometimes I've won clients and it's taken me 18 months, but a lot of my clients have come because they saw me tweeting or on behalf of a conference organizer, other conference organisers said, oh my goodness, how did you manage to create so much content? And so they've referred me on to, you got to listen to May King Tsang, she is amazing. So so you can also do that as well. You can get clients for yourself immediately if you really take part in the hashtag and get into the conversation.
Yeah, it's mindset. It's very much mindset about wanting to get in and share. I guess at the very worst, if you weren't on Twitter, and there are people who aren't on Twitter, but maybe on LinkedIn, maybe take some notes, maybe do a little bit of live, but you don't want to, obviously with LinkedIn, you don't do 500 posts per day. It's a different beast to Twitter, but you might do one or two across a day if it's a one-day conference. And then maybe, create more content afterwards and some blog posts and that type of thing. And that goes a really long way, I think, particularly if you percolate and you take in the information and you then add your own insights on top. They're very valuable content sometimes.
Absolutely. And, my personal best for LinkedIn actually is I did create 22 LinkedIn posts, one per speaker. So, of course, my community will probably be thinking, oh my goodness, what's that all about? But because it was for the maritime industry, it's an industry that I don't know anything about. You never know if the other, other attendees of that conference might be holding their own conference. So for me, it was a personal branding exercise to showcase what I can do. It's making the speakers feel good because they're creating, that suddenly they've got this LinkedIn post that encapsulates everything that they've spoken about. So it raises their brand level. But you don't need to create a LinkedIn post per speaker and what have you. What I do sometimes is I will create a LinkedIn post, keep it in draft until I finish the end of the day and post that. So for some people, if you can't live tweet but you're making notes on your phone or on your computer and so on, you can always write a LinkedIn post and tag the speakers that you've learned from, thank the conference organizer, and that will help you to stand out as well.
Building networks, building influence. Now, the other thing is, live streaming's nuts now, and it's available on all the channels. And if you go to a conference, yes, you can live stream a little bit of the conference and the speakers, or just snapshots. I'm not sure it's right to live stream the whole thing when people haven't paid, but certainly snapshots of it, and a minute here, 2 minutes there, 3 minutes there, sort of thing is very good to elevate and to get noticed, because I've done that in the past. It really, really works. People love it. But the other part of it is, you can be out there talking people, maybe vox popping the audience and what did they think of that speaker, and giving your views of what happened and creating some discussion. You could do it live, or you could just shoot video and put it up later if you wanted to. And people are generally pretty okay with joining in on that sort of thing, have you found?
Absolutely. This is something that I always encourage conference organisers to do, because in the past, conference organisers will get a videographer, they'll go around at the end of the day and say, hey, can you give us a testimonial? And most people are thinking, is that the time? I've got to go to Lou, I've got to meet someone, because they're scared of video. Secondly, it might be that they genuinely want to go to the loo. They generally have a meeting. But thirdly, it might be that they didn't like the conference and don't want to have their name associated with the conference. There could be a whole host of reasons. However, if you're a conference organizer and you go around with somebody, with a social media correspondent like myself, and say, would you like a bit of free publicity for your business? Suddenly you're making it about the attendees. And of course they're going to say, yeah, of course. And that is a different testimonial. It's a more authentic testimonial, because you're actually going to be talking to them and asking them what were their biggest takeaways. Why did you come? Are you going to come back again? You know, rather than the fake, you know, what did you like about the conference? Because they may not have liked it. So having those kind of snippets can create that FOMO, like you said, Trevor. And in fact, for a conference that I did, both in person and virtually, part of the pre-FOMO, I like to call it, is what I said. Pre-FOMO, that's right. There's pre-FOMO, live FOMO, and post-FOMO, and I do all bits. So for the Pods at North conference, which was a conference especially for podcasters, I said to the founders, right, let's get some vox pops, as you said. Let's get the podcasters to do a quick 1-minute interview to give themselves publicity for their own podcast, but also let people know why they're attending Pods at North. And it makes it about them, you see. So the user-generated content is genuinely user-generated content, but it's giving them publicity, and they're more likely to do it rather than waving a microphone at them and say, what do you think of us, kind of thing. And it went well, because for that particular conference, you know, other podcasters were thinking, I'm a podcaster like that person, and they're going to the conference, therefore I'm going to go as well. So that's the kind of thing. It's just a slight change in the way that you market your business. You're not making it about the conference, you're making it about the attendees and the speakers and the sponsors.
Yeah. I guess the other thing too is, I said it before, it's kind of like a mindset, the whole social reporting. I mean, I love the concept of social reporting for large enterprises. I think, you know, big companies should have reporters, social reporters being in there, and not necessarily the content team, just someone who understands and can translate, like yourself. You know, could be something that the CEO's doing, or, you know, they're having an event, or, you know, they can create content around it. But I think the whole notion, what I'm getting out of this is there's so many creative ways to create interesting content. It's just becoming a little bit more, you know, what you're doing is a bit more live, a little bit more in the moment, which I think carries a lot more weight, because it's kind of got that rawness, that authenticity that we like. And it allows you to give you context to talk to people a bit, you know, to put yourself out there a lot more, because you're actually at a conference and you're kind of reporting on it. So you can put out a lot more content than you normally would. And I think that that's where, you know, if you're wanting to build influence and build your brand, and you do go to events, and as we said, they could be webinars today, there's so much to be gained from you being the reporter, the correspondent. It doesn't have to be official. You're there, it's a public event, you're allowed to actually tweet from it, or you know, create LinkedIn content.
Absolutely. And you know, my tagline is you know, FOMO creator, bridging the gap between social media and PR. And you're right, it's about creating live content, it's about real, raw, right now. And if you have your handy mic and you go around and garner the opinions of people, rather than say, what do you think of this conference, you know, say, would you like a bit of free publicity? You're making it about them. And so that's a great PR exercise. You know, it's great PR for you, because if the attendees absolutely love it and you're giving them a bit more publicity, then other business owners who are lurking can think, that conference is especially for me. And also for big companies as well. You know, there's big sales conferences, for example, and they have sales days where they're championing the big salespeople, and you know, they're basically trying to reduce churn, right? So again, you're going around with someone with a handy mic, and we're not trained actors, you know, we're not RADA trained, we're not Oscar trained. It doesn't matter if we make little mistakes, and human ticks and errs and ours, it's fine. I still err and are in my reporting, but that's what makes us human, and it's absolutely okay. So we don't need to be really, really polished. The essence is getting that feeling, that emotion onto camera live, so that people can't hide behind a polished filter or edited videos. You're genuinely capturing the moment, and that is what's really important at an event.
And if you're live tweeting or you're doing, Instagram updates or something, I mean, then the key is adding value. What are the insights you've got? What are the best quotes that you've seen? Give some colour and movement. I mean, they're just things that in aggregate, they tell a bigger picture than just a one-off, here I am, aren't I great? I just want to shift gears, May King, because, you went sort of from not known in the tea space to becoming an influencer, a genuine influencer in the tea space. I didn't know there was influencers in tea spaces, but I'm sure there's influencers in all spaces. I just don't drink tea.
What?
And
Get out!
I'm sure coming over to Australia, where we don't mind our coffee, that might have been a challenge. But how did you, I just want to shift gears a little bit and look at your personal brand and, coming from scratch, you've started a business, you'll say, I'm going to be all about the tea. Just break down what that meant. What was that, what does a tea influencer do? And sort of, you've gone from, another company, from, a job, and saying, I'm going to create my brand. It's going to be making tea, which I love, and I'm going to be a tea note speaker and an influencer. How does that happen? What do you do? What's going through your mind?
That's a great question. So
there was a few loaded questions in there, actually.
Well, when you have the love and support of a partner, then anything is possible. And so initially, I went to Australia with the love and support of a man. Then it had an expiry date, unfortunately, and he went off, to do something else, but that's okay. But at the time, I was loved and supported, and I was given the opportunity to do what I wanted to do. Mindset is everything, absolutely everything. And as you mentioned before, Trevor, and so when I created Queensland Business, which was a group that really helped and supported each other, our tagline is help, share, collaborate. It meant that I was able to talk to people who really understood about being in business. But I made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes, but I knew when I did some research into marketing, one of the things was, the first thing it said was choose Twitter. And so Twitter was actually my first platform before Facebook. And then secondly, it mentioned about the power of branding, and branding is not exclusive to, your Googles and your Amazons of this world, but actually it's to anybody. So for me, I knew I had to get myself to stand out somehow. It was a lot easier in Australia because I look foreign and I've got a British accent, so it's like, whoa, too much of what's going on there. And so I accentuated that actually. But in my speak online, because my name is May King, I chose the Twitter handle and my social media handle as Making Tea. I would use tea puns in everything that I said and spoke and wrote, so it's community, hilarity, curiosity, and all the rest of it. So branding is so important. Even the way that I dressed. I dressed with Chinese clothes.
Not as a teapot.
Not as a teapot. Now, I did take my tea everywhere in a canister, and a lot of people said, "What's that? It looks like swamp water." But then it started a conversation. So I took my tea everywhere. I wore Chinese clothes to accentuate my Chineseness, and it confused the heck out of people when I had that British accent. So it was all branding. The way that I look, the way that I speak online, in person. The way that I was relentlessly helpful to use John Espirian, who was a previous guest of yours, to use his favourite phrase. I was just relentlessly helpful, and that made people remember me. When it came to FOMO creating, I thought about creating a new account, call it FOMO creator. But actually, Andrew and Pete said, no, don't do that. You've already built a community with Making Tea. Just change your speak a little bit. And so I have done. And so I've created new hashtags. I still throw in the odd tea pun now and again, but my branding is different. I wear a hat, and I talk about FOMO and get buzzed and excited, and I sort of put that into my videos and stories as well.
So it's an interesting transition, because people who, are professionals and been around for a bit, and, at some point they might be known for something and then they've evolved and want to move into something else. So you've kept the old May King, but you've just forged a new path. So you haven't completely, shed your old skin, so to speak. And do you still do the tea stuff as now, or not? When did you give that up?
I was wanting to get back into the tea space, but the FOMO creating took off like that. So last year I actually got my teas into the next phase, which is to make tea infused drinks. So I created tea infused beers. So Earl Grey beer, English breakfast beer, green tea beer, oolong beer. It was amazing. It was fantastic. And the hashtag was making beer. And we got it in a pub, and we had an amazing launch. And I also matched some. They also created some food from the tea infused beer as well. It was amazing. So I'm actually in talks with a brewery this year, because I want to repeat that again and work with a local brewery to do that. So the tea thing's never going to go away, because I'm British, I'm Chinese. Of course I'm going to drink tea. I do like coffee as well. Just don't tell everyone. And
so you do, when you say a tea note speaking, that was really, doing a talk with tea, a tea party, I guess, is that the sort of thing, and matching food with different teas, and educating people on tea, and that was a gig, part of what you did.
Yeah. So one of my proudest moments is working with an award-winning chef in Brisbane, and we did a 9-course degustation. So we matched the tea with the food, which was incredible. And Trevor, I know that it will be hard for you to understand, but I had to go through the hard rigmarole of having to taste the food and seeing what worked and what didn't with the tea. It was a horrible gig, Trevor, So I did that. I also managed to work with the creative director of the Beijing Olympics, who's a New York artist from China, but he's moved to New York now. And that came because the Gallery of Modern Art in Brisbane, they Googled Gong Fu tea ceremony, expecting to bring someone in from China, but up I popped everyone in Brisbane, because I was an early adopter of Google+. And so I performed Chinese tea ceremony, served 70,000 cups of tea for a 6-month art exhibition, which was incredible. So, and I had a lot of afternoon tea, or in Australia and America it's known as high tea. So I would talk about tea and match the teas to the desserts and the sandwiches and so on. So yeah, I love that, and I want to do that again, and I will do it at some point in the future.
Fantastic. Well, it's been quite a journey, and I think one thing just from hearing you talk is that because you put yourself out there, and I'm a big proponent of this, as hard as it might be for some people, that's when the opportunities come up. And the more you put yourself out there, the more the opportunities. And particularly if you're focused on an area and you get to know your stuff and you're sharing and bringing other people along for the journey and connecting with others who are in that space, they're not competitors. Highlight your competitors, work with others, collaborate, and spark a bit of conversation out there. And that's when, we hear so much ad nauseum about SEO and all of that, and it serves a purpose, but ultimately people don't know what they don't know. They you were found on one thing through SEO, but a lot of times you got engaged for something. People probably thought, oh, could you do this? Or that's not a bad idea, and what about this? And so the opportunities are there. You just got to be out and about and get a bit of momentum happening. So That's what I've gathered from what you've been doing over your quite a good period of time.
Absolutely.
Now.
And you know, Trevor, I think when you're starting out in business, you're surrounded by people who work for other people, you know, your past work colleagues and so on. Don't talk to them about your business, and don't talk to your family about your business. Talk to business owners who understand, because mindset, as you said before, Trevor, mindset is everything. And if you listen to your parents or you listen to your colleagues, they're only saying things to protect you, okay? They only love you and they just want to see the best in you. And so, you know, my parents were telling me to get a proper job for ages. And all they're interested in is whether I've got enough to pay the bills. That's it. So I talk to them about how much money I've made. It sounds really crude, but they're not interested in the fact that someone Googled and found me from Australia and they want to and they invited me to be on their incredible show. They're not interested in that. They're interested in have I made enough money to pay the bills this month, you know? And your colleagues are the same, you know. And I think it was Chris Brogan who said it takes 10 years to be an overnight success. And so people don't see, you know, us working really hard and the marketing and the sales and the building relationships and getting our mindset tuned in so that we are confident in what we're doing, and letting those imposter syndrome moments, you know, put them aside and all the rest of it, because working, you know, having your own business is challenging. You're not only doing the job that you want to do, but you're doing the jobs of many other things as well. And so it's really important to hang out with the people who truly understand and can help you, and maybe you can collaborate with them as well. So,
and they can appreciate 1,300 tweets in a day. All right, May King Tsang, you have the golden thumbs. She of the golden thumbs. Really enjoyed the chat today. Really enjoyed the whole concept of FOMO marketing, and you know, the clear takeaways for me. Yes, there are organisers that can use it, but once you dig in deep, there's a whole raft of opportunities for this live reporting, social reporting, content on the fly. Call it what you like. But it's, you know, it just shows that, you know, when you do get out and do something, whether you employ someone such as yourself to help you, if you're a speaker or you're running a business and you want a bit of extra oomph around an event, or you're going to other things and you start getting into the habit of doing it, even if it's 12 tweets instead of 1,200. That's the gig, you know. That's where it works, and that it was working like that back in 2010, and it's working like that today. You've just got more channels to do it from, so you've got to be a little bit ambidextrous. Indeed. May King, where can people find you on the interwebs?
I'm making tea, of course.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. I just thought I'd give you the opportunity to go with that one more pun.
Well, thank you very much. No, I sort of rebelled for a while, and I thought, I'm sure I can do all of this on social, and so I decided not to have a website for many years. And in fact, your lovely, is it assistant, wife, sister?
No, my production coordinator.
I mean, she actually found me on a free website that I wrote. You know, when I first came back to the UK in 2016, you know, unexpectedly divorced, and Australian immigration said, no, you've got to go home. Tail in between my legs. I thought I better start writing. So I wrote makingmistakes.wordpress.com. So I didn't even have a domain, and Lisa found me there. So you know, but I do know that I've lost some gigs because I don't have a website. So that will be coming later on this year.
Yes, excellent. I'll find you on all the channels as May King TEA.
That's right.
Terrific. Thanks very much, May King.